If I produce for French Montana, it will probably sound something like this.
You don't have to be forgiving. We both know we tried. Jay Freshman. First we did it out of love. First we did it out of love.
When it comes to French Montana and his collaboration with Harry Farr, their production just sound like you in a movie, bro. Like the beats be starting off so epic and the vocals just be on point. Not just like the sound of the vocals, but also like the meaning in the lyrics. That's what just gives the emotion to the beat. And in today's video, I want to make something in the style for that. And I just want to say thank you guys for showing so much support, man. We at 15K, yo. So that's pretty cool, man. So for this video, I'm gonna actually be giving you guys like the download files so you could download them and follow along. Links will be in the description. Now let's get to it. Let's load up a sample. So let's go to the browser. I'm gonna use Shift and Menu for a quick shortcut, and I could just pick out a sample that I like. Now, if you don't see your samples when you go into your folder, if it's something like this, all you have to do is just go to the file icon, and then you will see the wave samples pop up. So I'm gonna choose this Rita Remington sample, and I'm just gonna open it, and then I'm gonna hit Shift and Mute to get to sample edit mode. From here, I like to use the zoom function because it's just a lot easier to get to your samples without having to just use your fingers. And if you have it on end, it will snap to the end, and if you have it on start, it will snap to the start. So I could just do it like that, and let's just bring it to the beginning of the transient. Go to the end, just bring that in a bit closer.
Have to be forgiving. We tried.
That's the part I want. Let's just zoom in. So I like this part for the intro.
You don't have to be forgiving. We both know we tried.
Now, usually after this, I will go to process and then just extract this chop and then just assign it to a pad. But I recently learned instead of doing that process, I could simply just press assign and go to make a new sample and then put it on pad 1 and press do it. So you're going to want to rename it, name it intro chop. And then now if I do Shift and Menu, go to sample assign, now it's assigned to the pad, and I also have it in the sample pool. So if I hit menu and go to save and go to samples, from there I can save it, and essentially this is how you will make sample packs. And for instance, in this case, this is how I'm able to share these files with you guys, so you can do the same. Now I want to find a different pitch. First, I like to use the tune feature to find the key that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit, and since we have vocals in it, I'm going to just go to those parts so I can just hear how that would sound.
You don't have to say you love me. You don't have to say you love me. Tell me lies. Tell me lies.
So I like how it sounds tuned to 2, but you can hear that it's been sped up. So we're not going to pitch it this way. What we're going to do instead is put this back to 0 and then go to process, then go to pitch shift, and then go up 2. As you can see, you're not able to preview it. So that's why I like to use tune for reference. So just press do it.
You don't have to say you love me.
And as you can hear, the pitch sounds clean, the tempo sounds clean versus any other method. Like if you was to use warp, it's not really good at time stretching. But it doesn't mean warp is useless. Here's what I like to use it for, and you could try this trick too. So let's just pull this back, go back to main, and I'm just gonna change it to like a hip hop range. So maybe around 94. And it's good to know different ranges of tempos in the genre that you're trying to make. So this could be a simple Google search, type in hip hop tempos, and usually it's range from 85 to 95. And the more you narrow your focus, the better you get at hearing it. And then I'm gonna go to warp and then put it on warp. But if I hit the pad, you can hear that it sounds bad. But that's because we're in double time. As you can see, the tempo is 190, but what if we cut that time in half? We can do this by going to Shift and Mute, sample edit, and then go to the second page. And to the right of the BPM, you can see it has multiplied by 2 and divided by 2. We're gonna wanna divide it by 2 since we're already in double time. So now if we go back to main and go to warp, you can see that it's also been changed here. So now I can hit the pad and mess with the tempo because I have it locked in now. I like how 86 BPM sounds. Now I just want to change the sequence bars to 10 since the loop is 10 bars itself. And then go to grid view, just put a note on pad 1. So even if you miss it, you could just move it over, use transpose to bring it down. And then go back to main. Just make sure you name everything so that you stay organized. So that's the intro. Then I would just go to the pencil tool by sequence and just copy this sequence, but name this one hook. Do it.
Now it's time to get into the main beat, finding that loop so we can just throw some drums and bass on it. So let's get it.
So let's hit shift and mute to go back to sample mode and go back to our original sample, and then we're just gonna find that main chop.
Now we know the last bar, the intro goes like, and we both know we tried. So I just found a chop that goes along with it, not just the beat, but also with the lyrics, just making it even more emotional. So when you find a loop that you like, you can have it loop back just by pressing pad 16.
But first we did it out of love. But first we did it out of love.
Then from here, it's the same process. I just want to go to assign, make it a new sample, but I'm going to put it on pad 2. Make sure you don't put it on pad 1 because you don't want to overwrite that sample. And then press do it. And then I'm going to go to that chop, rename it main chop, and then I'm going to process that. Pitch it up too. Now the best way to time stretch is not by using warp. It's actually by just going to process and then just going to time stretch itself. We just want to change it from 98 and put our new tempo, which is 86. You don't have to worry about all these functions, but right here it says beat and then the original tempo, and we're just changing it to the new tempo. Now we can record that in, but we're going to want to change our bars back to 4. Since we copy over the sequence, there's already a note. So if you hit record and play start instead of overdub, it's just going to overwrite it.
But first we did it out of love.
What the hell?
So sometimes it's happening where it stops at a certain point, but if you just go to warp samples and you just bring it all the way to the end, then it will play the whole thing.
But first we did it out of love. But first we did it out of love.
Now, if we want to add our own drums and bass, we simply just gotta make room for that by cutting out the low end of the sample.
Let's go to this eye icon right here, and then we want to switch from the program icon to the pad icon and put it on pad 2.
First we did it out.
Because of the intro, I don't mind it having that low end because I'm not planning on putting any drums or bass on it.
Now I just want to go to insert, go to EQ filters, and go to kill EQ. This is my favorite EQ to take out low end in the sample, and they have a preset called no kick drums. So let's hear before and after.
But first we did it out of love. But first we did it out of love.
Now, there's probably a greater way to take out the low end, but I took care of the additional problem. Like Einstein said, stay away from people that find a problem with every solution.
Now let's find our 808. So let's hit main, and then just close this menu, go to track 2, and hit key groups, which is the piano icon. And then we're just going to rename this real quick, 808. And name that program 808 as well. And then shift the menu to go to the browser, and we're just gonna load in 808.
If you've been watching a lot of my videos, then you would know that the Unison drum kit is my go-to because it has a wide selection of MIDI and audio loops for many genres. And I also like that all the 808s are tuned to C because it syncs up right away with the beat versus if it was a different note, then you have to go through a whole process. And I have a whole video that goes into depth of how to use 808s on the MPCs. But anyways, if you like more info on the drum kit, link is in the description to go check it out. And it's also a great way to support the channel. Let's talk about sound selection real quick. I like to break it down into 3 sections: timbre, frequency, and the length of the sample.
You can hear that babe, it's the short 808. You can hear this has more of a resonance point. But I like how 808 cash sounds because it just has like a very smooth timbre, and it also has enough harmonics to reach into the mids, and it's also a long 808. And just load that in. Now if you hit sample assign, you will see that it's low to all 16 pads. Then what you want to do is go to menu, pad 14, switch from sample to global, and then we want to switch from note on to one shot, because with note on, when you try to play it, you got to hold on to it, because as soon as you let go, it will cut off. Now that's good in some instance, but for me, workflow wise, I like to just have it on one shot for now so I can just kind of go through. And as you can hear, there's an overlap of the 808s. So you want to make sure you go to global and come down here and put it in mono so they cut off on one another. Then we can hit main to go to pad perform, but simply you just want to go to notes. Now if we go back to our sample, we can find the key that it's in, and as you can see it says B flat minor, and then let's go back, shift to 16 levels. But remember, we went up to semitone, so we're going to have to do the same. So from B flat minor, we're going to go up 1, which is B, and then go up 2, which will land on C. So we're actually in the C minor scale instead of the B flat minor. Now, when it comes to making a bass line, a simple method is to use the bass notes of the sample or the melody. And a quick tip, you can just go up the octaves with your 808 even to a high point so you can really hear the pitch so that you know that you're going to the right key. Now, if you struggle to hear the low end, especially because we use the effect to take out the low end, you're not really hearing it. So we could just go back, go to our chop, and go to pad 2. Instead of just turning it off, there's actually a preset where you can just do lows only. So then we can hear the bass line in this sample. So I'm gonna just follow along the lines of that bass line. So I'm not gonna lie, I can't really hear the notes where it's going like do 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 do. But just from playing the piano, usually when something's going like that, I can just tell that it's going up the scale, something like. But you ain't got to get that crazy. So let's actually bring this down to like C4. Go back to our chop. Make sure we take it off the low end. Put it back to no kick drum. Hit main. Go to our 808s. I might just add another C right there.
But first we did it out of love.
Bring that down. What we can do is also bring this probably lower.
But first we did it out of love.
And then from here, we can just select it. And then while it's highlighted, you can hit Shift Copy and then Shift Paste. And then for the second part, I'll probably just add in another note somewhere. Overdub and play.
But first we did it out of love.
And it's only playing high because the pad banks is set to high and also in pad performance set to high, but you could just go back down with the banks to drop the octave. So I'm gonna zoom back up and just bring that down to C.
All right, let's get to the drums.
Go to main, go to track 3, close this, name this drums. We just want to go back to program this time and then add a new program and name that drums. Then we just want to hit shift the menu to go back to our browser, and then let's just look for a kick. And then we're just going to follow those 3 concepts, the timbre, the frequency, and the length.
But first we did it out of love.
So the 808s is pretty loud, so let's just go turn that down a bit.
But first we did it out of love.
Then we can go back.
But first we did it out.
We just want to turn up our audition volume a bit more.
But first we did it out of love.
So I like flyers, but I'm just going to have to turn it up a bit more. But you want to make sure that you are on the right program. You can see I'm on 808. We need to be on drums. And then go back to browse and load that in. And then just do the same for the snare. Now, how do I know that I want a snare over a perk or a rib shot? That's just preference at that point. And if you listen to the French Montana tracks, they're usually using a snare in his sample beats versus a clap. But I like the snare miss. And I already got my go-to hi-hat, man, from this kit, which is called Hi-Hat Baby. Can't go wrong with that. And just load that in.
But first we did it out of love. But first we did it out of love.
Now for the hi-hats, I just want to take it off a full level just to have a bit more dynamic in my drums. So I could hit it soft versus loud. So you can play around with that.
But first we did it out of love. But first we did it out of love.
For me, I want the kick and the snare to hit a bit harder, and without overthinking the process, we just simply got to understand we just need to add more harmonics to our sound, which is going to make it louder because it's being spread across the mids, the high mids, and so forth.
So you're going to want to go to menu, pad 14 to get the program edit, and then you want to go to the effects. Then there's also a second page of effects if you click it, and then you could use the soft clipper to help amplify the sound. So I want to do that with my kick.
First we did it out of love.
So you can hear that it's making a major difference. and then do it with the snare a bit. Now the hi-hat is already sharp. I don't really need to put it on a hi-hat. And another thing I want to do is go to main, and for the snare, this is another technique when it comes to like this mixing as you go. This pitch is all right.
I like the sound overall, but I just wanted to fit the pocket a bit more.
We can also change up the timbre by switching the key of it. And then we're just gonna find one that fits better with the beat. For me, F minor just sounds a lot harder than D sharp minor. Because what is happening, since we went up the key, we're also moving up the frequency, so it's sounding more clear than if it was just back in the low end on D sharp minor. That's how you gotta be thinking about mixing, man. You really gotta be just thinking about frequency most of the time. And then we could turn it down a bit, because since we moved up the frequency, the higher you go, the more your ears can perceive, like, you know, higher frequency versus low ones. So you're gonna have to like readjust your levels. So let's just do that. This way, you still have that timbre, still have that amplified sound, meaning just more harmonics in your sound to make it sound louder.
Now that we got our main beat, the rest of the beat making process is just to come up with variations. But before that, I want to time stretch the intro since we got the tempo set now.
So let's go back to the intro, go back to the intro chop itself, and go to process and time stretch it. Now, you might not be able to see it on the screen, but right now it's showing something completely different from 97 BPM. It's showing 20. Now, when it's showing 20, that means you don't have the correct amount of beats. Remember how I said the intro is 10 bars? For every bar in a 4/4 time signature, there's gonna be 4 beats within a bar. So we're gonna have to multiply by 10, and that will give us 40. Now look what happens when we go to 40 beats. Now we're closer to that original tempo. So don't get caught up in having it be like the exact tempo. Like if it's close to it, then you're fine. Then just hit 86 and do it. And then we could go back to main and then go back to our chop, go to warp, go back to pad 1. Make sure, you know, that you just extend that out and then take it off of warp. So now to see if it's gonna be a nice transition into the main beat, what I like to do is just play the intro, then scroll to the hook, and you'll see that it will jump to that next.
We both know we tried. First we did it out of love. First we did it out of love.
I like doing it like this because then I know if my drums are hitting hard enough and if my sound selection sounds good. And we can just also hear that the intro is a bit lower than the hook. So we can go to chop 1 and just turn that up a bit. And now let's hear how it sounds.
We both know we tried. First we did it out of love.
So that sounds a bit better. The intro, we can kind of turn it up a bit more, but for now it's good. So now we can copy that sequence to make a verse section and just name this verse. Do it. So I'm gonna mute the 808s because the notes is gonna be different since the chops are gonna be different. And just go back to sample edit mode and go to the main chop and then chop this up. And since we already got the BPM locked in, I'm just gonna use BPM chops. But on the second slice, you can hear like this little artifact. I don't want that. But before you make any changes, you just want to take it off of linked slices so it's not affecting any other pad. Because if I move anything from this pad, now pad 3 is still the same. And pad 2 plays to only where the end part is. So that's just a good technique to do. So I could just find the part where it's making that noise and just come a bit closer. But since that part was a part of pad 3, I could just put it on link slices and just move it this way so that part 3 gets more of that transient. And then I just want to hit shift and convert. Now, usually what I would do is new drum program using slices. But now I'm liking the idea of new drum programs with new samples and just having like my chops in a whole different sample pool.
So then you can make a one-shot out of these sounds and then put them in other beats.
So if we go to shift menu and go to sample assign, you will see now all the chops are in the sample pool. And you could go back in sample edit mode and rename them too. But keep in mind, since we're on a different program, go to the eye icon, make sure you switch it from the pad icon this time back to the program so it's affecting all the chops. And then go to kill EQ and put no kick drum. So let's record something in.
Now we can work on a different bass line, and for this I want to use a different 808.
What I can do is copy this program so I don't have to go through that whole same process of putting it on one shot and putting it on mono, and then just do shift menu and bring in another 808. And I like this 808 called 808 Ari. As you can hear, it just got that rumble and it's a long 808. Going back to the timbre, the length, and the frequency. Just load that in. So let's hear how it transitioned from the hook to the verse.
So right off the back, I don't like the 808 being that saturated versus the other 808. I still want it to blend nicely. So I could just simply use an EQ to cut back on those highs and the high mids.
So I just want to go to the eye icon again and then go to insert effects and just pull up a pair of EQ and then just turn down the highs, the high mid. So before. After. And I still get that gritty sound. And to even make that more prominent, you can hear that this 808 has a bit of stereo width to it. So we can actually control that and make it sound more tight by going to modulation and using the stereo width plugin. And then we could just put the lows in mono and put the mids in mono before.
But still keep the highs to add some flavors. Now when we hear it back, we're gonna hear how smooth the transition is. Yeah, that's better. Now I'm going to make 2 more variations so we could just have more to mess around with in our arrangement. Now, if you've been enjoying these tips throughout the video, I have a whole ebook of all my YouTube shorts combined and organized with video links and in writing. So you can save more time searching through all the YouTube shorts I have on my channel, because I have a lot. So link is in the description. You can also check that out.
Now let's duplicate the sequence again. And what we're going to do is just name this verse second part.
Now I could just record a new chop.
Yeah, that's hard. And I could just duplicate the sequence again to make a third part. So name this verse third part. And for this part, I could just keep it simple. You don't always have to go crazy with your chops. I could just repeat half of that full loop. So something like this. And then from here, now we can just go to song mode, and then we can just press overdub, and we can just record in the intro, the hook, and the verse. And you can choose to convert it to a sequence, or you could export it into a song.
Now, if you would like for me to make a video on the whole full arrangement of this beat, let me know in the comments. But in the meantime, if you like this video, like and subscribe, share with your other producer friends, and you can watch this video next to prepare you for song mode. Peace.